December 3rd, 1943, 1420 hours, Stalingrad, third floor of what used to be an apartment building on Solnikhnaya Street. Sergeant Dmitry Ivanovich Petrov lies motionless behind a Mosin Nagant rifle, his breath forming small clouds in the frozen air. Below him, through the scope's crosshairs, a German soldier moves through rubble. The man wears a Wehrmacht uniform, carries an MP40, and is exactly 340 meters away. Petrov has made this shot 73 times before, 73 confirmed kills in 4 months, each one recorded in a small notebook he keeps in his left breast pocket. His finger rests on the trigger. The German doesn't know he's already dead, but then the soldier stops, changes direction, begins moving not toward the German line, but toward a collapsed building where smoke still rises from yesterday's artillery strike. Petrov tracks him through the scope, keeps the crosshairs centered on the man's chest, standard procedure. The German is young, maybe 22, 23. His uniform is too clean for extended combat, probably a replacement, fresh from training, sent to fill gaps left by the catastrophic losses at Stalingrad. The soldier reaches the rubble, stops again. And then he does something that makes Petrov's finger hesitate on the trigger. He sets down his weapon. To understand this moment, you need to understand Stalingrad in December 1943. The great battle ended 9 months earlier, but the city remains a graveyard. 90% of buildings destroyed, 40,000 civilians dead. The Volga runs with debris. In winter, bodies frozen into the ruins thaw in spring, then freeze again the next winter. Some buildings still contain the dead from both sides, German and Soviet, buried under concrete and twisted metal where they fell. The fighting has moved west, toward Kursk, toward Ukraine, but Stalingrad remains militarized. Soviet troops hold the ruins, German stragglers, lost units, and reconnaissance teams still operate in the devastation. Snipers on both sides hunt in the wreckage. It's a war of individuals now, not armies. One shot, one kill, day after day. Petrov has been stationed here since August. His assignment is simple: eliminate any German presence in his sector. No prisoners, no warnings, just patient, methodical killing from positions 300 to 400 meters away. He's good at it, exceptionally good. His superiors have mentioned medals. His fellow soldiers call him Teak, the quiet one, because they never hear his rifle until the target is already down. He doesn't think of them as men, can't afford to. In his mind, they're targets, objectives, each one a small contribution to pushing the Wehrmacht back toward Berlin. The moment you start seeing them as human, as someone's son, someone's brother, someone with a name and a story, that's when your hand starts to shake. That's when you miss. But now, watching through his scope, Petrov sees something that breaks his careful mental discipline. The German soldier has dropped to his knees in the debris. He's pulling away chunks of concrete with his bare hands, digging, frantic. His movements are desperate, urgent. Behind him, his MP40 lies in the snow, forgotten. Petrov adjusts his scope slightly, zooms in on what the German is uncovering: a child's hand, small, pale, reaching up through the rubble. The German digs faster, throws aside broken bricks, twisted rebar, pieces of what used to be someone's home. His breath comes in visible gasps. He's shouting something. Petrov can't hear the words, but he can see the soldier's mouth moving, see the intensity in his body language. Then another German appears, older, an officer judging by his uniform. He grabs the young soldier's shoulder, trying to pull him away, points toward the German line. They're exposed here, vulnerable. Any Soviet position could have them in sights. The young soldier shoves him off, keeps digging. The officer hesitates. Then he too drops to his knees and begins pulling away rubble. Petrov's finger remains on the trigger. He could kill them both. 2 kills. quick succession. The young one first, center mass, then adjust for the officer before he can react. He's practiced this exact scenario in training. The calculations run automatically in his mind. Windage, elevation, breathing pattern, trigger squeeze. But he doesn't fire, because now he can see the child. A girl, maybe 6 years old, covered in dust and blood. The two Germans lift her free from the debris, and the young soldier cradles her against his chest, checking for injuries. His hands move gently over her arms, her legs, her head. She's alive. Petrov can see her moving, can see her clutching at the soldier's uniform. The officer gestures again toward their line. Time to go. They're deep in Soviet territory. Every second here is a risk. But the young soldier doesn't move toward German positions. Instead, he turns and begins walking in the opposite direction, toward a building 500 meters away that Petrov knows is occupied by Soviet medical personnel. He's bringing her to Soviet lines, to the enemy, to save her life. Petrov has killed 73 men. He will kill many more before this war ends. But in this moment, watching a German soldier carry a Russian child toward safety, crossing an active battlefield with no weapon, no protection, just desperate determination to save one small life, something shifts in his mind. He thinks about his own daughter, Katya, 7 years old, evacuated to the Urals with her mother in 1941. He hasn't seen her in 2 years, doesn't know if he'll ever see her again. In his letters home, he tries to sound strong, confident, tells her that Papa is fighting to make the world safe. He doesn't tell her that he lies in frozen buildings and shoots men who probably have their own daughters, their own children waiting at home. The German is 50 meters from Soviet lines now. Soldiers have seen him. Rifles are being raised. Petrov knows what will happen next. The German will be shot. The child might be hit in the crossfire. The soldier knows this too. Petrov can see it in the way he's moving, in how he's trying to shield the girl with his body while raising one hand in a gesture that might be surrender or plea or simple hope that someone will recognize what he's trying to do. Petrov could end it now. One shot. The German would never know what hit him. It would be a clean kill, a good kill. Number 74. His scope is perfectly aligned. The German's head fills the circle. The crosshairs mark the spot where the bullet will enter. Petrov's breathing is calm. His hand is steady. Everything is ready. He thinks, this man saved a child, risked his life, abandoned his weapon and his safety to pull a Russian girl from Rubble while his officer tried to drag him away. And now he's bringing her home, to us, knowing we'll probably kill him for it. Petrov thinks, how many of our men would do the same? He thinks, how many times have I walked past crying in the ruins because I had a mission, because stopping meant risking position, because one child doesn't matter in a war that's killed millions. The German is 30 meters from Soviet lines, close enough now that Petrov can see the child's face over his shoulder. She's conscious, alive, looking around with wide, traumatized eyes. Petrov's finger tightens on the trigger, then releases. He lowers his rifle, carefully, deliberately, sets it down on the floor beside him, and for the first time in 73 kills, he simply watches. The German makes it to Soviet lines. Soviet soldiers take the child. They don't shoot him immediately, maybe because he's unarmed, maybe because they see the child, maybe because even in war, there are moments that transcend orders and doctrine. They bind his hands, take him prisoner. He'll be interrogated, sent to a camp. Whether he survives depends on which camp, which guards, which random factors determine life and death in Stalin's system. But he's alive, and so is the girl. Petrov watches them lead him away. Then he picks up his rifle, disassembles it methodically, and climbs down from his position. He writes nothing in his notebook about this afternoon. No kill count. No details. Some things don't fit in the neat columns of a military record. That night, in the barracks, another soldier asks him about his day. "Quiet," Petrov says. "Nothing moved in my sector." It's not exactly a lie. Nothing moved that needed to be killed. He doesn't tell anyone about the German soldier, doesn't mention the child, doesn't explain why his 73rd kill remains his last number for the next 3 days. In war, you learn quickly that some truths are better kept private. That mercy, even witnessed rather than given, can be dangerous to admit. But late that night, unable to sleep, he takes out the letters from his daughter, reads them again in the dim light. Her handwriting is getting better. She tells him about school, about her friends, about the cat that lives near their building in the Urals. She ends every letter the same way. "Come home soon, Papa. I miss you." He wonders if the German soldier has similar letters. Probably. Most men do. Dmitry Petrov will survive the war. He'll return to his family in 1946, wounded but alive. He'll work in a factory, raise his daughter, watch her grow, marry, have children of her own. He'll carry the weight of 73 kills for the rest of his life, but he'll also carry the memory of the one man he didn't kill. The one time he chose to lower his rifle and simply be a witness to an act of humanity in the midst of mechanized death. He never learns the German soldier's name, never knows if he survived the camps, if he made it home, if he ever told anyone about the day he saved a Russian child in Stalingrad. But Petrov thinks about him often, especially when his daughter asks him what the war was like. "Terrible," he tells her, "but not everyone was terrible." It's the most honest answer he can give. This story, whether it happened exactly as described or exists as one of the many half-remembered, half-mythologized moments from the Eastern Front, matters because it reveals something essential about human nature under extreme pressure. In the city where 1 million men died fighting over principle and territory and ideology, where both sides committed atrocities that would haunt survivors for generations, where the brutality became so normalized that death lost meaning, one German soldier chose to risk everything for one child. And one Soviet sniper chose not to kill him for it. The war would continue. Millions more would die. The Eastern Front would become synonymous with industrial-scale violence, with deliberate cruelty, with the complete erosion of moral boundaries. But in that moment on Solnichnaya Street, two men on opposite sides of history's bloodiest conflict made choices that affirmed something stubbornly human. The German saved a life at risk to his own. The Soviet let him live despite orders, training, and 73 previous kills that said otherwise. Neither man was a hero in the traditional sense. The German was part of an army invading Russia, serving a regime of unprecedented evil. The Soviet was a trained killer in a system that valued loyalty over conscience. Both were complicit in a war that destroyed countless innocents. But for one afternoon, they were also something more. The German was a man who couldn't walk past a child's hand reaching from rubble, and the Soviet was a man who could recognize the worth of that impulse, who could see past nationality and uniform to acknowledge an act of basic human decency. The child survived. Historical records suggest she was eventually reunited with relatives, though details are scarce. The German's fate remains unknown, one prisoner among millions in the Soviet system. But Dmitry Petrov's choice to lower his rifle that day matters. It matters because it proves that even in conditions designed to strip away humanity, to reduce men to killers and targets, to eliminate moral complexity in favor of simple us versus them thinking, the capacity for mercy survives. 73 confirmed kills, and one deliberate miss. Sometimes, the shots you don't take define you more than the ones you do. December 3rd, 1943, 14:20 hours, Stalingrad. One Soviet sniper watched one German soldier save one Russian child and chose witness over execution, recognition over reflex, humanity over orders. In a war that killed 27 million Soviet citizens and 4 million German soldiers, 3 people survived one afternoon because 2 men made choices that their commanders never ordered and their training never taught. That's not redemption. The war was too vast, too terrible, too deliberately cruel for single acts of decency to redeem anyone. But it's proof that even in the worst conditions humanity has ever created, the impulse toward mercy, toward protecting the innocent, toward recognizing the humanity of the enemy, never fully dies. It just waits, hidden, like a child's hand reaching up through rubble, waiting for someone brave enough to risk everything to pull it free. And sometimes, if we're fortunate, for someone else brave enough to let them.